Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intuition Revolution podcast. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Yvette, who is the midlife rock star. So, Yvette, I would love for you to tell us what your business is about to start with.
Hi, thank you for inviting me on the programme. I decided to coin the name Midlife Rockstar myself on the basis that I think it's really important to arrive at this point and not feel fear and not feel scared of being midlife. So by attaching this word rockstar to it, we're just revving it up a little bit, which is what I believe we need to be doing in midlife. So in fact, the whole business really is about helping women really sort of step into that space where life can sometimes feel like it's unraveling. And what I do is create an online community whereby women who are journeying through midlife and who potentially feel conflicted and confused can have a really safe space to speak their truth and to collaborate, and to also see that this space isn't this time and space isn't one to fear or one to dread. And in fact, it couldn't be a better point to start to sort of, I guess, go back and get unfinished business done. So so what I do is really help them to find the resources, whether they be personal, professional, create this community and have access to resources. And it's more important for me to just emphasize this space to speak, which is very different to perhaps being on a Facebook group where everyone and their dogs sort of in a group, and potentially you want to say something, but you're worried about somebody else maybe being in the group that maybe doesn't have the same views as you, or in fact you just don't have the confidence to say what's really going on for you. So this is it's a paid platform whereby you're in there because you want to make change, and everyone's in there because they've all committed and they're honouring each other and helping one another move forward and journey through.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what? The vision I had when I was listening to you is of you helping midlife women become the own rock stars of their lives.
Absolutely.
And that is so important, because it's at midlife usually that our problems catch up with us. If we've been mothers, that's also the time when our kids leave the nest. And so we're left to wonder who we are.
Absolutely.
It's very often when things start to fall apart, as you said. I had a bit of an early one myself, because mine was more in my mid-30s. So I was an early midlife rock star. But if I can say something about the midlife rock star, that group that you're, or movement, I think it's a movement, is that the thing that put me off first joining your group was the midlife word. But because you added rock star to it, I was like, I'm in it. That's it. I'm a rock star. I know it. I would never call myself a rock star, but because it's associated with the midlife, and it's like, yeah, it's got the right vibe. So I think that speaks a lot, because in midlife, it's almost like people will tell you that the best is behind you.
Yeah.
And a lot of women feel like regret, maybe for what hasn't happened, or maybe for a relationship that hasn't worked out. That was definitely the case for me. I was grieving my first marriage that I had entered thinking it would be for life. And so when it wasn't for life, I felt like a failure. I didn't feel like a rock star at all. But you are going to make these women feel, or you are making these women feel like they are rock stars, and that's just so important.
I think it's the whole thing came about for me when I realized, it's this thing where, I mean, as a 55-year-old woman, I've had the group now, I've had this whole rockstar thing going for about probably 3 years. And it's because at this point, in my 50s, I'm like, do you know what? I don't understand. It's probably because I arrived in my 50s And suddenly people were calling me midlife, and I'm like, and then I'm like, I realized that this word didn't match how I actually felt. And I thought, why am I denying this word that defines or that says it's a stage of my life? And I'm like, well, if I'm in denial, am I the only person? And I realized that this was a big thing, that this word midlife had an energy and an attachment around it that represented, you know, old and not sexy and you're finished. And I thought, well, hell no. I was just like, hell no, that's not how I feel. And I decided, you know, I really wanted to focus on rebranding it because, you know, if you're going to call me it, then I was going to own it, but feel good about owning it. And then I just realized that other women were like, oh, no, I'm not midlife. And I'm like, well, actually, what's wrong with the word? If you were midlife, what does it mean to you? And I sort of was able through research to understand that it just meant washed up. And we're in
It needed a good clean.
Yeah, it just needed a good clean, it needed a good makeover, it needed to be re-energized. And essentially that's what we're doing in midlife. We're doing all of that. Like you said earlier about, you know, the focus is no longer perhaps on, not for many, the focus is not on the children anymore. It becomes back to you. And suddenly you've found yourself looking at you and perhaps your partner and your life, and it's like, well, hold on, I'm not even a part of this anymore. I've almost been a passenger in my own life. So it's a real point whereby, you know, it can be quite disturbing to see all of your life unraveling and thinking, well, everything that I've focused on is no longer here. So it's a time to redefine, refocus, re-energize and recharge. And it's like whatever you want to put, redefine. It's just an amazing point in your life if you've got the support to understand what's going on. And the perspective is essential. The perspective of what's really going on, because as your life unravels, it's not a very stable place. And so with instability comes confusion, and with confusion comes chaos. And if all that's happening and you haven't got a community of women to say to you, look, this is what's going to happen, or potentially this happened to me, I got through it, or that didn't happen to me, but I do know someone else that specializes in that area and they can help you with that. But if you're going through that alone in your kitchen, and all you've ever heard is the old stereotypes from generations ago, which is you're going bat crazy, you know, it can be very, very frightening. And with that fear, the panic sets in, and then you're sort of looking and thinking, yeah, okay. So the reality of it is, if as a young mom, or if as a mother, you choose these roles, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but let's say, for instance, you decide to become a mother, and you become a mother, you're certainly not pushing your pram in your Manila Blahniks. You're pushing them in something a bit more realistic, which is probably trainers and flat shoes, and, you know, you've dressed down because you're in the park, so you're not in your high heels and your business suit. So over a period of time, your look and everything about you has changed to suit that period in your life. When all of that has changed and all of that's moving away from you, you're coming back to looking at self and thinking, well, actually, I don't even know what my style is anymore, or I don't know what the new style is that I want to go into. I don't have the confidence to wear what I used to wear. But that's just thinking. That's just about the thoughts that are going on in your head. You know, if you've not worn high heels for the longest time, trust me, they're not that easy to just jump back in and wear again. You've got to sort of retrain yourself and start wearing, you know, a 1/4 inch heel and then take it up a bit. So there's such subtle changes that if you don't realize, or you don't get the perspective, you kind of, it's easy for you to think, I've lost it. But I can assure you, you've not. There's just so many things that you've got to tackle all at the same time. And they've all got their space and their place. And, you know, with the support, I think it can be a really fun time, really fun.
I agree with you. And I'm looking back on my younger self where all of that was happening. And I still remember to this day, I was 30, I was actually 35, and it was slightly before I left my husband. And I had designed my life to please others. So I got married, I had 2 children, I chose a job that wasn't really the job that I wanted because it was safe, it was secure, and I made my parents happy. I was the only child who was married with kids, so they were over the moon. Being French, it's like the family is so important. And I woke up one day and I was like, what's in it for me? And I was like, I don't know. Why am I not feeling happier than I am? I'm supposed to have everything. I have a career, I have a husband, I have children, I have a house, I have a car. What's wrong with me?
Which is the main question.
Yeah, what's wrong with me? And then I realized there's nothing wrong with you. You've just people pleased your entire life, so you've lost yourself. Now let's get back to where you need to be. And the process that helped me back then was just to start doing art. I started making mosaics. Actually, first I started writing, which I'd never thought I'd ever do. And then I did mosaics. And then the beauty of the mosaics, the actual technique, is that I could see that it was a metaphor for life, that I had all these fragments of myself that I had lost that I could bring together and make a new picture. So I can see the power of your work, your platform, what you stand for is just amazing.
It's beautiful. I say that myself. It's beautiful because I just watched so many women arrive completely disorientated and so sad and feeling this sense of regret. And, you know, what I help them to understand is don't regret, because all of that has, you know, it's been the sort of the colourful, what do you call it, the tapestry of what you've yet to become.
Yeah,
all of
absolutely.
that. And once they get that, and I say to them, right, what's the part of you that you left behind that's just still on hold, waiting for you to go back and pick it up and run with it? And that for me was my business, this business. It didn't look like this at all. And that's why I try to get, you know, women to understand. When I say it's unfinished business, don't go necessarily looking for it as it did then and try to seam it together. It's just, if you've always devoted yourself to your children, perhaps there's a bit of you that in the back of your mind, whilst you've been raising kids, you always thought, I'd love to run a business. Well, that's the part of you that maybe we work on. Or if it's the fact that you say, do you know what, I've never had time to take care of me and my body and the way I feel about myself, well, maybe that's where we start, you know. Or if it's about relationships and you've never really buttoned them down, it's like, is that where we start? Do you know what I mean? So there's no right or wrong. It's just the unfinished business that you've felt that you've parked up, haven't had time to focus on, or haven't up until now felt was important. And so it comes, like you said at the very beginning of this, in your 40s and 50s, all of the things that you parked and you backed up because you're just too busy, life's just too busy, you're focused on so many other things, all of those things, they come, and they come in a big black bag, and they're saying, sort me out, take me out one at a time, and just nurture me, sort me out, park me, get rid of me, place me, but you're going to do something with me. Because midlife emotional state makes you it forces you to take action if it hits you in that way. I call it the feather brick truck moment.
I think it's a bit the universe also redirecting us and saying, haha, you forgot something here. That was your dream when you were younger. And my dream was to be an artist. So I went for the mosaics, and you have no idea how much it fulfilled me, how much joy it brought me. And it actually opened me up to what I'm doing today in the strangest possible way.
Yeah.
Because when I was doing that, I was tapping into my intuitive, creative self that I had always had, but I parked it to focus on the law and focus on logic. And I could not continue to work with just half of me.
Yeah.
I had to bring that other bit of me. And then after that was an integration period. So I had like 15 years, and now I'm whole. But I'd love for people to be able to do that from the very start. And I'm hoping that with the next generation, this is, at least for my children, that it's going to be possible. And you're working with women who wanted to fit in and who were people pleaser. And I'm not saying this in a negative way at all. I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm like, I want everyone to be happy around me. This is in my true nature. But I don't realize the downside of it, which is I sacrifice myself without thinking about it. I'm just going, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself so everybody's happy. No, but it happens along the way because I kind of not think of myself too much.
Yeah.
And so this is sacred work. I'd like to know how long you've been in business, what you've been doing, and what led you into what you're doing now.
It's funny that we're actually again, when we agreed to do this interview, it was months and months ago. Little did I know that unconsciously I chose the 8th of March.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. I love that this is.
I have no idea why I chose. I didn't sit and consciously look at the date of the 8th of March and say that's the day. But the 8th of March is a really special day. Obviously, it's International Women's Day, but it's my own International Women's Day. And I'll tell you, because when I was 21, I worked for the local government, and I was I was invited to go to a seminar, and the it was basically the team that I was on. It was like International Women's Day. For some reason, I was allowed to go, and I sat in the room. And I remember it being a really big round table event. So this is like over 20, oh God, I think we must be talking at least 30 years ago. Okay, 30, 25 at least years ago. And I remember sitting around this big round table and sitting there and feeling in awe. I was like, oh my God, why am I here? Questioning, how am I in this room with all of these women? They're all powerful women, etc., etc. Because up until that point, I don't think I'd ever had a role model in my life at all. Nobody that I could, sorry, obviously, you say that and you should always not should. There are circumstances where one looks at their mother. Other than that, I was just like, the best I was ever going to get out of life was to go work for the company that I was working for, which is the local government job for life, and that was the mentality. But on the 8th of March, 25 years ago thereabouts, there stood this woman on stage called Sahia Hashimi. I think that's her surname. Sahar Hashimi, something like that. And she's the founder of Cafe Nero. And she told a story about being knocked back when she was trying to set up Cafe Nero, and how this idea just popped as she was walking through the streets in America, and she noticed all these coffee shops, and she's like, there's nothing like this in England. And she wanted to bring the idea back to the UK. To cut that story short, she told how she did that. She put 5 applications, her and her brother put 5 applications into the bank, and they kept refusing them. But she went back, she kept going back to America and taking specific photos. She'd take photos of how they'd laid the little muffins out, the kind of cups that they used, and to the point where they chased her off and said, hey, out, because they clocked what she was doing. And I found her fascinating. I remember I love fashion. So I remember clocking her outfit and thinking, she had this little brown wrap dress on. She's a tiny little human, and she's delicate little thing. And I'm like looking at this tiny little human on the stage, commanding the presence in this room of all these women. And as I observed all women, all these eyes were just focused on her. She had these lovely Gucci boots on, and it's like, why are you telling this detail? Because it all mattered to me in that moment. I was looking at somebody and I'm thinking, I'd like to do what she's doing. I'd like to be like she is. But up until that point, nothing had ever occurred to me to think like that or to be that. And so here, she inspired me on that day to want more, to be more, to have more. And it wasn't an immediate thing. It wasn't, I didn't leave the room thinking, right, this is how I'm going to do it. I think she planted a seed. And it took 12 years before I opened my mouth publicly and spoke, but I always knew where it came from. And then 12 further years. And then here we are speaking on International Women's Day again, unconsciously. It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't planned. You gave me a whole range of dates. And I thought, oh yeah, the 8th of March will be fine. I'll have enough time by then to sort of sort through what I'm doing. But it means so much to me because I can't ever not think about her and the impact she's had for me, my journey, my career, the way I think. And I wrote to her. I actually wrote to her and said,
wonderful.
thank you. And she wrote back, she said, I had no idea that, you've been following me all these years. And it was just like, I give a little updates of what I am up to and what I'm not up to kind of thing. But that's how it started, by that person, one person standing there on the stage and sharing a story about, it's not about failure, it's feedback. It's not about, looking at the knocks, it's just knocking on more doors. And she just said things that made sense to me in that moment. And as a result of that, I'd left the council, maybe, I don't know, a few years after, probably within a year, knowing me, because I take action quite quickly if I decide I'm going to do something. And then I went into the sort of, the private sector world. So how am I doing what I'm doing now is because after I had my baby, she's now 19, after I had her at 2.5 years old, I decided I didn't want to go back into recruitment, which is where I was. And it just kind of fell out of my mouth that I wanted to own a shoe shop. It was just like, okay, maybe her boots was the thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I have no clue where it came from. But I can tell you, I could describe the boots she had on to this minute. And it was just like, I've always liked shoes. I had never worked in a shoe shop in my entire life. The day I worked in the shoe shop was the day I had the keys for my own. And so, I worked in this, I had this business, but when Jada was 2.5 years old, she got a life-threatening illness. And my whole world sort of like cascaded, fell apart really, because, that was happening. But so whilst I was saving one baby, I was losing another, and in many respects, a lot of the clients that used to come into that shop used to just talk to me, because it was a boutique. It wasn't just just a shop. I really made it special.
Yeah.
And they used to talk to me about their life and where they were going with these shoes and what shoes did for them. And after I ended up liquidating the shop, I spent 6 months trying to figure out what to do. And then this one day on the treadmill, I just thought, I'm going to ring. There's these companies, because the guy who helped me liquidate the company, I said to him, what's this called that you're doing? Because he was doing the talking and he was helping me feel better about the decision I'd made. And I said, what's this called that you're doing? And he said, consulting. And I said, okay. I said, do you do this for smaller businesses? And he said, not really. And I thought, well, I'd have loved to have somebody like you when I was going through the depths of this, handling the child and handling, the staff and not knowing what I was doing. Yeah. So consciously, I'd made my mind up that I'd love to help people in that way. And so I ended up making a phone call, as I said, I came off the treadmill, went home, and I was looking through and I saw this business called Mind. I can't remember, Mind something or other. And I rang them and this lady answered, Midgie. And we got talking, and as she's talking, I thought, this is exactly what I want to do, what you're doing with me right now. You are helping me sort through my life. You're helping me separate all these issues out. And I said to her, how do I train to do what you're doing? And that was in 2006. And I've been in the same, I say in the same space. I've never, ever changed my mind about what it is I'm here to do. It's looked in different ways. It's come in different forms. I've fought with titles and I've gone, no, I'm not a life coach. I'm not a business coach. I'm not a this and I've always been, it's not about what I'm not as opposed to what I am, because I couldn't find the term for it. And so when I realized, actually, you're not trying to help people put their businesses together. You're not really just generically helping people sort out their bills. You are a personal coach that works with business owners, and business owners whose lives are unraveling for whatever reason, because if it's unraveling at home, then it impacts the business. If it's unraveling in the business, it impacts the home. And that's where I positioned. And so my journey has just been a reflection of where I've been at any one point. So the Midlife Rockstar has just evolved because it's yet something else I'm looking at and thinking, so this is problematic too, because it's unraveling. And so it's just wherever life unravels, I kind of pick up there and say, right, well, we'll focus on this for a few years until I think the next thing I'll be doing is something for pensioners. So who knows?
Well, do you know what? I think it would be wonderful to have a different blueprint for retirement. I can't personally think of retirement because I love my work so much, but maybe those years where it's really completely 200% on your terms, whether you decide to work with a client or not.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole, again, retirement. People retire in their 30s if they've made enough money. Yeah. But when you retire in your 30s and you've made enough money, it's not seen the same as when you retire in your 70s. That one is the one that we're like, don't like that title. Because, but if you're in your 30s and you say, I've retired, people are like, well, how? What did you do? I want to be able to retire from something to aspire to. Yeah. And yet, as you age, it's something to avoid. And I would like, my dream would be to have everyone running towards midlife like you do when you're 18, sort of running towards your 18. People can't wait when they're 14. You're 14, you're like, I can't wait till I'm 18. And then it's, I can't wait till I'm 21. And then it's, can't wait till I'm 30. And then you celebrate the 40th. And then after that, we start going quiet.
Sure.
And I'd like to run towards the midlife, because you've got all of that experience, you've got all that wealth, the wisdom, and so much to bring to the table if only you knew how to lay it all out and make it work for you.
And it's also in midlife that we reinvent ourselves and actually probably live the life we should have lived from the start, had we not used someone else's model.
I don't know if it's about the should, because it's the shoulds. It's that label what causes the problem when we say we should have lived it. We've lived exactly the life we're meant to have lived. It's just at midlife, it is about honing it in and saying, okay, I've done that bit now.
Reinventing yourself. Then.
Myself completely.
I have done that a couple of times. Yeah,
constantly
I get it now.
We're constantly reinventing ourselves, but it's as though you get to this point and it's like, I'm running out of time. Are you? We were always, life, it was always going to end. It is always going to end at some point. So make the bloody best of it. And this bit, you've got everything you need. Just need to hone in on your confidence and get really super sharp and clear about what this next reinvention looks like. But this one's got, it's got fewer obstacles, I think, in terms of where your attention's going and who you need to please. And because we're not used to it, we're not used to the focus, just, saying, okay, I want to spend money on me, and this is how I'm going to do it. I want to invest on this, and this is what, instead of, oh, well, I need to do this for Jimmy, and I need to do this for Sarah, and I need to do this for my husband or my partner. They're really quite easy because we've been doing those roles for years. No different to when we, professionally, we go into an organization and they expect within 3 months or so, you'll have found your feet-ish. And then you're doing that role for some time and you get really, really good at it. And then perhaps you say, right, okay, I'm going to, you find yourself, I'm pregnant, I'm having a child. That's a brand new role again. It's reinventing yourself because we don't know what we're doing and we're spinning in that space. But then we get really used to that. And when we've got to reinvent ourselves because that bit of our life is finished, we start panicking and going, oh, it's all falling apart. It's not falling apart any more than it did when you were pregnant and you had to reinvent yourself and you had to sit there and work out what to do. What does this cry mean? I've got no clue.
And, I don't know if this happened to you, but I know that when I left my job as a lawyer, I never thought I was attached to that identity. And yet it was so difficult because this is the first thing people ask you. When they meet you, what do you do?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't do anything.
Yeah.
I've just left my job. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And just socially, and I isolated myself because it was so uncomfortable meeting people that were so attached to their own identities that they expected me to be something that I wasn't anymore.
Yeah. And finding that is really hard. Finding a new identity can be tricky, but the clues are always there. I see that time and time again, the clues are always there. They're formed quite young, and go back and pick pieces of them up. I'm sure as hell you loved art when you were a kid, all that tapestry. You might not have done it that way, but you might have been artistic when you were a child.
I was very artistic.
Yeah,
and the funny thing, go ahead.
I was a connector as a child. I was that house where my mum would just say, she's not in. She's not in. And I'd be in the bedroom going, but I am. She said, I'm sick to death with people knocking on your door, on this door. And she could go out and play and don't come back. And I'm still happily, busily connecting, loving it. And I've just come full circle. Full circle, doing what I love.
That's amazing.
Being part of a community. So now we are in midlife and I've focused on building community.
Right. My next question is, do you consider yourself intuitive?
I have to say yes.
Okay. Would you always have said yes, or is it more recent?
No, I think I would have always said yes, but I was in denial of it. Okay. Probably because it can be quite, it can be a bit overwhelming to know something, but you don't know where you know it from, how you know it, why you feel what you feel. And there comes a point where you just kind of have to, well, you're embracing it. So I remember going off and doing a course and trying to get my head around this. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. It's just a bit, just getting my head around it and understanding how you know what you know and realizing that you don't need to analyze.
I have no clue. I know this, basically.
Because you're looking for rationale. You're looking for evidence to know that you know that. And it's like, well, I just feel it.
Yeah. And then you get, if you act on it, you get the proof after you acted. Yeah. It's one of these things where you have to take a leap of faith. Yeah. I think I remember us having this discussion when you started your Fresh from the Hills, where you said, I have no clue why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And you had to do it. And
And it's a weird one, because it's still, I'm like, what part did that, where did that come from and why? And yet it's slotting into the platform. It's led me to contacts. It's opened. It was where I got I suppose I rebuilt my confidence back from. It just didn't make sense as to, I kept saying, well, I don't understand where this cooking, in fact, I kept calling it a side hustle, because I didn't want, again, which is what you do with intuition, you try and dismiss it, deny it, push it away, rename it, call it something else. So I was like, okay, this is hashtag side hustle. And it's
the expectations we have from the intuition as well, isn't it? That it's going to look a certain way, or it's going to get us the results, and we just have to throw all that out the window, which is uncomfortable, isn't it?
Very.
Especially when you want to know. I want to know. You want to know. We all want to know what's going to happen. Why are we doing this? Where is it going to lead us?
Yeah, and where's it coming from?
Well, that's a whole new debate. Maybe we should have another discussion on that. Right. So do you know how you receive your intuition?
It's a feeling.
Okay.
It's usually a feeling. I'm trying to think. It can come really quite strong, almost. So it's like it's loud. It's a feel. It's probably two ways, to be honest. It's a feeling, usually in my stomach, which can be really heavy, and then there's a supportive voice.
Okay.
So, for example, on Saturday, we're in lockdown. We're not supposed to say we went anywhere, but I did. I went to my friend's where I'm in her bubble, and she lives less than 3 minutes away from here, but I had some stuff in the car that I needed to bring back to her. And I have always just had, I'm not somebody that drinks and drives or anything like that. But if I've had a drink or something, I would drive home, But for whatever reason, right even before I'd set off, my daughter said to me, "Oh, are you going up to your friend's tonight, Mum?" I said, "Yeah." And then she said, "Are you driving back?" And I said, "No." And then she said to me, "Okay." And literally, I got there, and I've known her 8 years, and I've never not driven home. But when I got there, I said to her, "Oh, I'm just going to give you my car keys because I don't want to drive home tonight, and I don't want to get confident and think that I should." Okay. And I didn't drive home. I don't know why. It was like it was just no, we're not driving home. And I've yet to understand what that was about. I walked home, I fell up the steps, but not because I've had alcohol, but it was just a really weird signal. Do not drive home. And then yesterday when I was out, an air ambulance, I've never seen one before in my entire life, landed in the same spot that I was in. And it was just like, and then something else happened, and it's happening in three. They always happen in threes, and I'm like, And it's just like, what's going on here? What is going on here? So there's a third to happen, and then I'll know why I shouldn't have driven home, what the air ambulance was about. I mean, I stopped and talked to this guy and said, well, what situation do you come out? What makes you come out? Blah, blah, blah. And he's telling me and explaining. And I'm like, okay, so there's another one for me to actually.
You're patient enough to wait for those three signs. That's good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So the next one is is the question I love asking is, what is the one big story of intuition that helped you significantly in your business?
With this platform, really, I mean, I've had many, but with this platform, I was due to launch it in November 2019. And I'm in touch with an astrologist. And I did a post on Facebook about, coming soon. She's not somebody that her and I would pick up the phone and have a chat. And I was driving. It was a long drive, I remember that. And she just rang me out of the blue. And she just said to me, I just saw that you've put on that you're going to be launching your platform soon. She said, I don't know if it's a good idea. And I said, it's funny you should say that, because I was just thinking that. I've been trying to get everything ready, but nothing was going right. Everything was stacked up against me. And I just thought, you know what, I need to leave it. And had I have done what I was planning to do, it would have absolutely collapsed by now. Absolutely. But because I left it, I've been able to get the clarity, get connected to the right people, and I feel I'm going to launch. Well, I feel like it's what I'm launching is absolutely, it's like a complete different model of the version of what I wanted to set up. So it's that kind of thing where you just think, wow, and it was just really, I tagged her in that post. I don't know why I tagged her. I remember this. I tagged her in that post just because, I knew she was waiting to get involved. And I just sort of like tagged her because I just thought, oh, she's really wanting to hear what's going on, etc., etc. And it's just bizarre. So it's a situation like that where it just doesn't make sense. But I listen to the signals as I'm going along.
That's powerful, because intuition sometimes doesn't make sense at all.
Well, does it ever? You say sometimes. Does it ever make sense?
I think I've had some instances where intuition really made sense in a funny, crazy way, because it gave me such a different perspective on something. It's almost I was looking from different eyes. So, but I would say probably most of the time it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like a mystery. It's like I don't think it can put words around it sometimes. It's like, how do I know what I know? I don't. Where is this coming from? You don't. Follow it. Just follow where you're being guided to. And I'm so confident to trust it now, though.
That's
But
amazing.
sometimes I forget that that's what's happening.
Mm.
And I think that's where, you think to yourself, oh, that whole pushing, and you just think, oh, hang on, stop, check in. It doesn't want you to go down there. All of these blocks and barricades and barrages are for a reason.
Oh, yeah, the energy is often very, very clear when you're not supposed to go down a road.
Yeah.
That your intuition doesn't want to go down there. And I have the perfect example, actually. There was this woman who was a psychic that a very good friend of mine like raved about. She was the best ever on the planet, whatever it is. And I booked with her because at that time I needed a bit of counseling or guidance. And first she canceled my appointment and I rebooked. And do you know what I mean? It's like I pushed, and it was the worst reading I've ever had. So, but because my friend said it was great, I went along. So, yeah.
Yeah. And again, another example of that, I'll give you another one, was for the platform. It's the most, I'm pulling on the recent one. Again, like yourself, I was introduced to this woman who was meant to be the best in the industry, who was going to help me get this concierge platform off the ground. And I thought, oh, okay, fabulous. And when I reached out to her, apparently she was on honeymoon. She responded. And then then she came back to me, and everything about the communication was off, right from the word go. And then when we did, on the call that we were having, I remember sitting there and not feeling in sync. It was just off. And I'm like, if I'd have given thought to it, I'd have been saying to myself, you're forcing this. But I wasn't Yvette that I know I can be. I was Yvette. It was a version of me, and there was something off, and we were always off. And it came to making a payment to her, and she did and said a couple of things, and I thought, we're always going to be off. Everything about this conversation, everything from the minute you got introduced to her to right now is not working. And then I actually had the guts to just say, I'm sorry, I can't go ahead with this. And then I saw that she came back with everything that my stomach was telling me. She was vicious, she was vile, she was vulgar, she was all of these things. And I thought, oh my God, had I got in a relationship with this woman, I'd have been locked into it for a long time, because I would have been using that platform. And I'd have had to deal with this. I would have had to deal with this, and it would have been a case of, getting myself out legally. But it was just listening and watching myself, and, just
and it's more difficult. I think both our examples show that if someone raves about someone, and if this is an expert, and I think it's important for our listeners to hear this, then we can override our intuition. And if we lack the confidence, I have a feeling that the Yvette that answered that woman didn't feel confident and felt like she needed someone to tell her what to do. And so that was a perfect match for the mismatch. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. The lack of confidence in my ability to trust myself was being overridden by handing over myself to somebody who I felt knew more than me about what I wanted.
And that's a typical, it's a no fail, if that makes any sense.
And it was just like,
I really want our listeners to hear that.
I was like so hell-bent on, she knows more than me, she's got the answers, everyone else has used her, it's worked for them. But you know what? It just wasn't going to work for me. And I was trying to make it work for me. And it's like, no, listen to your intuition.
That is definitely the sound that we need. That's the reminder. Beautiful. So do you have another minute? Because I have one more question that I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
Obviously, people will know how to find you because we'll put it in the show notes and everything else. But just tell us quickly, where can people find you? And then I'll ask you the last question.
Okay. You can find me on Facebook at Midlife Rockstars. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Yvette Puliga, and online. The Midlife Rockstars is the platform. Anywhere where you look, you'll find, if you put in Midlife Rockstars, you should be able to find me.
Wonderful. Yeah. So my last question, which is, I can't say it's my favorite. I keep saying all my questions are my favorite, but no. What would you say to someone who's afraid to use their intuition in business?
What would I say to someone who's afraid? It never, ever lets you down. That's what I would say. But sometimes it's trying to work out which bit's intuition compared to which bit's rational or logical thinking. That's where it gets a little bit confusing. And if you're in the logical, rational thinking and you find yourself not being in flow or at ease, and then when you think about all of what you want and you're still bumping into problems, your intuition is probably speaking to you at a higher level and saying, come over here, do it this way. And that's when you just need to let go and say, do you know what? Let me try. Let me see. I'll go over here. I'll try this direction. But it's the flow. It's the flow of energy.
Absolutely. Intuition and energy are so intimately linked.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just feels right. or for other people, you know, sounds right, or, you know, you hear there's different types of
Looks right, or smells
but,
right.
smells right, but yeah, you just know. You want to say you just know. There's just, it's like it's the subtlest, not.
It is subtle. And I want to say one thing, just to conclude our discussion today, although I could talk to you for hours, is that sometimes our ego, which is an incredible shapeshifter, disguises as our intuition.
Yeah.
And is trying to pull us away from the intuition by pretending. And I find that in these cases, the voice is a lot louder than the intuition would be. The intuition is a much softer.
Yeah.
It can be strong, but it's soft, whereas the ego is harsh and
It's
loud.
harsh. Yeah, yeah. Going back to that situation with the platform making the decision, that was the ego. The ego part of me, I wanted to be working with the best in the industry. Why wouldn't I? I wanted to be a part of that platform where everyone goes, and, you know, why wouldn't I? But the intuition was saying, no, just, it's not right. It was such a subtle whisper. And then it started to give me, as you call it, I've said it twice now in this call, started to give me feather brick truck moments, just to let me know. It's like, okay, your feather was, she didn't rock up on time for your phone call. She's written to you in a manner that's made you feel quite upset. Your brick was, she's actually forgotten about the call. Now you're chasing her. In fact, you put the phone down and you're left wondering what to do, but you're paying her for guidance. Come on, do you need any more than that? I was like, maybe. So I went back again, and then it's like, okay, here's your brick. And she's now going to say to you, now we want X number of pounds, but we didn't agree that. That's not what you said. Well, it just is. Like, well, you can't just surprise me. Well, here's your truck moment. Decide, do you want to continue working with somebody like this or not? And that was as subtle as it was subtle to start off.
And then it gets louder and louder and louder. True. Right, it looks like we've lost you a little bit. I'm going to wait to see if the internet gets better. And if not, it looks like we're frozen. So I'm going to thank Yvette for all the wonderful things that she's shared and for coming live for us today. I want to thank all the listeners for listening to this episode till the end. And I'll talk to you again in the next episode.